Hello everyone, this is Lulu from As You Wish Pottery, and in this video, we'll be painting this adorable Oh Happy Day platter. As always, all our supplies will be listed on the lesson plan, so feel free to grab that before we get started. Okay, so we're going to begin this project by using a large square brush and 1 to 2 coats of peach fuzz to cover the background of our Metro platter with messy brush strokes. So what that means is you're going to load your brush onto your paint. So you're going to put it perpendicular to the paint and kind of tap on the paint onto the bristles. Then you're just going to messily paint some brush strokes around the platter, trying to cover the surface of the platter with messy strokes. So try not to go in one direction and try to go around and paint it messily. Next, we're going to use a toothbrush or a medium round brush, and we're going to splatter in the pink onto the surface of our platter. So keep in mind though, this is just messy little splatters, so they don't have to be perfect or anything like that. And then once you're done, you're going to set your platter aside to move on to the next step. Okay, so while the platter is drying, we're going to move on and create our traceable image from the images included in the lesson plan. So just keep in mind though that I am folding that little piece of paper that that's extra, and the idea here is just to make it so I can align the first page to the second, and so I know what exactly I'm tracing and what. This will just make it easier for me to trace just one page instead of having to do both, like one half and then the other. This here I can just trace on as it is. So once I'm done aligning my page as I like it to be, being able to see both images, I'm going to grab some tissue paper. I'm going to cut a piece of tissue paper to fit the size I'm looking for. Then I'm going to grab my pencil. I'm going to set the tissue paper on top of the printed image as you see here, and I'm just going to follow along the lines I see from the printed image below. Keep in mind though that if you wanted to change your design, this is the perfect time to do so. So if you wanted to write something else or you wanted to do something else, you're more than welcome to use the tissue paper and create your design while the platter dries. And then once the platter dries, we can move on and transfer the design over to the piece. Alright, so once we're done tracing, we're going to align our tissue sheet over the platter. We're going to make sure that the edges are as close to the edge of the platter as we can. Then we're going to follow along the lines with the marker. So pressing on the marker onto the tissue sheet will make it bleed and let us see all the lines that we are following along. Keep in mind though that the pencil and marker lines will disappear after the piece has been fired. So for right now, we're creating the template. We're just getting the idea out and trying to figure out how to fit everything in the platter itself. So don't worry about this being perfect. Remember, none of this is going to stay. Okay, so once we have the design already all traced onto the platter, we're going to rotate our tissue sheet upside down and making it so the image is mirrored on the platter, and we're just going to trace all of the designs again. We're not going to do the writing, we're only doing the florals and the leaves and things like that. Another thing I wanted to note is that sometimes things might need to be adjusted a little bit here and there, just because we might accidentally not be able to fit a leaf or something like that. But just remember that the marker lines will disappear, so this is totally okay if things overlap for right now. We just have to make sure that we correct them when we paint them. Okay, so next we're going to use a detail brush, and with 2 coats of In the Pink, we're going to paint the 3 flowers on the top right and bottom left corners. And we're also going to paint the 3 little buds on the left and right side of the writing, just as you guys see here. Remember, you can always look at the image on the lesson plan to tell you what exactly I'm talking about, just in case. But you can also just watch along and see me paint it. And then remember that since this is a mirrored image, we're going to do both sides. So we're going to do the left or the right side first, and then the other side as well. Okay, so next we're going to rinse off our detail brush, and with it we're going to paint 2 coats of water yolk on the 2 large flowers that sit right underneath those pink flowers painted on the last step. So as you see, this is just the petals pretty much sticking out, so I'm going to do both sides and then move on from there. Okay, so with the same brush or small round brush, we're going to paint the large flowers that are to the top left and bottom right of the platter using 2 coats of water yolk. So keep in mind though that these 2 flowers are kind of the largest flowers we have going on. So if you're using the small round brush, you want to make sure that you let the paint dry in between coats. So what I like to do is I like to paint one flower, and while that one's drying, I paint the other one and then go back in and do a second coat on that. If you're using the detail brush, you don't have to do that. You just have to make sure that your surface is really well covered, and one go around of the detail brush kind of equates to 2 coats of any other brush. So now we're going to grab the detail brush again, and with it we're going to paint a few small petals on top of the pink corner flowers with 2 coats of water yolk. So these, I made them to be 3 to 2 petals at most. It's just however much space you have going on. Try not to make too many just because we want them to just be an accent on top of that pink flower. We don't want it to take away or cover them up. So next we're going to rinse off the detail brush again, and with it we're going to paint some of the leaves and stems around the flowers with 2 coats of lime ricky. We're going to use the sample as guide, or you can feel free to change the sequins around and you can paint whichever leaves you want to paint with lime ricky. I just like to paint every other leaf with the green color, since we're going to use another color to paint the rest of the leaves. So for this part, there's no right or wrong way to go about it. Just feel free to paint however many leaves you want to paint with that lime green color. And then when it comes to these pink flowers here, the only thing I'm doing for these flowers is the stems and the leaves, and I'm leaving the little part underneath them unpainted because I'm going to paint that later with another color. Okay, so next we're going to use the detail brush and Tahiti teal to paint a few stripes inside of all the petals on the large yellow flowers on the corners. So for these flowers, I only did like 3 stripes inside each petal, and then once I was done with that, I used the tip of my brush to close the gap in between all the stripes by just tapping my brush in that center circle area. But just remember to leave that center unpainted. We're going to paint that with another color later on. Then once we're done, we're going to use the same brush and the same paint to paint the small hyacinth flowers above the large yellow flowers. And then with 2 coats of teal, we're going to paint the 3 large petals on top of the other large yellow flowers. So remember, we're doing both sides, the left and the right. So don't forget, once you're done with one side, to move on to the other. Okay, so with the detail brush or small brush, we're going to paint the rest of the leaves with 2 coats of double mint. And don't forget to add the receptacle at the end of the pink flowers to connect them to the stems. Okay, so using Polar Bear and the small brush, we're going to paint the center of the large corner flowers by tapping the bristles of the brush and letting the paint pool inside the circle area. Okay, so next we're going to use the long detail brush and 1 to 2 coats of Bebop in Blue to go over the writing on the center of the platter. So keep in mind though that your first coat should help you know where the letter is going to sit, and then your second coat should help you fatten it up and make the letters thicker and more bubbly looking. Another tip when it comes to lettering or when it comes to doing anything intricate like this, I like to hold the piece with one hand, and that one hand that's holding the piece is also the hand that's moving the piece, so that way my painting hand doesn't have to travel far and it doesn't have to do any weird motions to get to the surface I'm trying to cover. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing any lettering or anything like that or anything intricate. Make sure to hold your piece and rotate it so that way the other hand doesn't have to struggle too much to get to the surface, and this will help you have really nice and clean lines. And don't be afraid to load your brush. Make sure that you have a lot of paint on there so that way when you're thickening up and when you're setting up your letters, they look really plump and really juicy. Okay, so next I'm going to use the same detail brush and the same Bebop in Blue, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the outlines and give all my flowers accents and things like that. So for this part you have complete creative freedom. You're more than welcome to go about it however you feel the most comfortable, however you want it to look. You can outline some things and not others. That's totally okay. Just know that because I'm outlining certain things, that doesn't mean you have to do it as well. You have complete freedom. Please do whatever makes you happy in this part. Outlining is one of my favorite things, but I know that it might not be everyone's, you know. So when I work on a project, I like some nice thick outlines and things, but that doesn't mean that that's what you like. And I want you to feel comfortable enough to do whatever you feel the most comfortable. So do the parts that you feel are gonna look the best, and remember to rotate your platter so that way your outlining hand doesn't have to travel too much, and remember to have fun with it. Another tip I also like to give is to make sure that you're not pressing your brush too hard onto the surface. You kind of want wispy motions or wispy little strokes, and that will help you have really nice thick to thin lines and things like that. From this point on though, I'm just gonna let this play out. I want you to see me outline everything in the project so that way you have an idea, and even if you don't decide to outline everything today, I would like for you to feel comfortable enough to maybe do so in another project. Okay, so now I'm just gonna let this roll out, and then I'll talk to you guys again on the next step. All right, so once we're done outlining, we're ready for some final touches. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm using my just any brush that has a nice end to it. So I think I'm using just like a medium square brush or something like that to just paint dots around the platter using Bebop in blue. So this is just adding random dots around. I also added some dots to the pink flowers, but really this is optional, just whatever you like to do. I'm trying not to add too many. We just want a little bit of them around as accents. Alright, so next we're going to add some final highlights to the piece. Right now I'm just using a small or a short brush to paint some polar bear dashes around the areas that need a little bit more brightening. And then I'm also going to add this, or use this brush to add some highlights to some of the leaves, to add highlights to the flowers, to paint a few random dots and things like that around. So you can use the sample to know exactly what I'm talking about and which parts I did. But you can also see here that they're kind of random, and just wherever I wanted to add a little bit more color or a little bit more brightness is kind of what I'm going for. So feel free to follow along or do your own thing. Okay, so the next step is going to be to use a medium square brush and paint some dashes on the rim of the platter. This is really easy, just by loading your brush and just tapping it on the edge of the rim and then skipping a row and keep going until your whole rim is done. So here's the piece. Before it's fired, you can see that all of our colors are looking kind of dull and muted. And then once the piece is fired, all those colors are going to brighten up. You're going to be able to see all the contrast of all the layerings we did and things like that. And this is a piece that you can definitely have on decoration all year round if you wanted to. So thank you so much for painting with me today. You have a great day, and I'll see you guys again the next time. Bye-bye.